The hiring bar is getting higher and higher, and every hire has to have a clear business case. If you're a general smart person, it's not enough.
Hi everyone, this is Kamran Shaukat at NUS BizCareers. To help you advance your career, I'm happy to have Stephen Leung here, who's our expert subject matter specialist in the finance and tech space. He's also one of our international embedded coaches based here in Singapore. So welcome, Stephen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Leung. I'm a venture partner in Singapore, where I help facilitate deals and opportunities. My career spans about 20 years across the tech, media, telecom, and internet sectors.
Thank you, Stephen. Beyond the obvious giants, and especially for our MBA students, what and where do you think the main opportunities are in high growth areas?
I think outside the big names, there are three really interesting pockets for MBA. First, B2B and infrastructure fintech. For example, payment, finance, wealth, and treasury platforms. These firms power banks, insurers, logistics, and e-commerce behind the scenes. And they do hire MBA into product, partnership, and strategy roles because they need people who understand both clients and business model. Second, digital asset and regulated tech players. For example, exchanges, custody platforms, tokenization infrastructure, and compliance tech. The speculative bubble has deflated a bit, but the serious licensed players in Singapore are still building, and they want people who can speak finance, regulation, and tech in the same conversation. Finally, vertical SaaS stands for software as a service, and AI data companies selling into sectors like supply chain, healthcare, sustainability, and of course, financial services. These are recurring revenue businesses with strong unit economics, and they need commercially minded product managers more than they need another pure quant. If you are an MBA, don't just ask, is this a famous brand or famous company? Instead, you should ask, is my role solving a real world problem at scale?
Thank you, Stephen. That's a very interesting point there. I would say the adoption cycles of technology, and we hear a lot about AI now, the adoption in different industries and functions are different. And I think, especially in banking, they were very early on the game. But what do you think is the single most valuable technical skill to bridge finance and technology?
Yeah, a lot of students ask me the same questions during my coaching sessions. My answer is if you only have time and resources to invest in one, make it data fluency, SQL plus basic Python. We are not asking you to be a software engineer, but
Mm,
you do need to be the person who can pull your own data, clean it, and turn it into insight and actionable recommendations without waiting for 2 weeks for a dashboard. In other words, it means being able to query a database in SQL, manipulating and analyzing the data in Python, visualizing, explaining to leadership what you have found in clear English to product managers, engineers, and business leaders. Once you're comfortable doing that, everything else, for example, experiment design, AI tools, and product analytic platforms becomes much easier.
thank you, Stephen. That's very interesting. And to move on, especially for our MBAs, what are the most non-traditional finance roles you see in Asia and Singapore beyond traditional IB and asset management?
If we think about the roles where we could still use our finance toolkit, but I think we also need to be sure that we are close to the product and long-term value creation. For example, in fintech or digital bank product strategy, we need to be able to design lending, payment, wealth platforms, price them, and manage the risk and growth. In corporate development and strategic finance roles, for example, M&As, partnerships, capital allocation, and board material. For risk or balance sheet strategy roles in banks and platforms, we need to be able to manage credit and portfolio risk, liquidity, capital, where we blend modeling with policy and technology. Finally, in VC growth equity or corporate venture arms. Usually they're there with a smaller team. It's harder to enter, but it's highly attractive for MBAs who enjoy evaluating business model and working with founders rather than executing transactions.
Thanks, Stephen. And especially in the current climate, what would your advice be for our students and fresh graduates on the hiring processes and competencies in today's climate, especially if they're not from Singapore?
I think there are two big shifts. Number one, the hiring bar is getting higher and higher, and the hiring cycle are longer. Companies are hiring fewer people more selectively, and every hire has to have a clear business case. If you're a general smart person, it's not enough. You need to have a sharp story about the problems you can solve on day one. The second point I want to make is market and visa realities matter more, especially for international talents. Companies are prioritizing candidates who are already in the market and already showing commitment to Singapore. That means, this is a very important point, internships, part-time projects with local Singaporean firms, and clear sector focus are more important than ever. The MBAs who get great roles are now the ones who combine three things. You need to demonstrate your skills, a narrow, sharp, and credible target story about yourself, and visible proof that you are already creating value in Singapore. It's not just I'm open to anything.
Very interesting. A lot of stuff there, Stephen, and all good. But with AI changing tech and finance, what would be the one key mindset or skill an MBA must develop to stay relevant over the next short term, say 3 to 5 years?
This is also a very interesting question and most frequently asked questions from students during my coaching sessions. I think the single most important thing is learn to use the machine mindset, being adaptable with AI, not threatened by it. It means treating AI as a tool, a standard part of your workflow for research, analysis, drafting, and experimentation. Continuously retraining yourself. New tools, new APIs, new ways of working with engineers and data scientists. The final point is doubling down on the unique human skills that AI cannot replace at scale. For example, framing a business problem, ethics and judgment, storytelling to leadership, building trust with stakeholders across different job levels. If you frame the right problem, get the right data, and orchestrate human plus machine to solve it, you'll be very valuable in any vision of the future, whatever specific job titles look like.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. And I always say this at the end, it is about relevance. Have your agency, show positive energy, and build trust. If you can do that on top of your core expertise, I think you have a fair chance at the role. So thank you, Stephen, for your answers today. And I hope the MBA community found it very useful. They can always set up an appointment with Stephen, who's one of our IEC's International Embedded Coaches, via Talent Connect.